Welcome to the Evidence Informed Teaching Podcast. Are you a teacher wanting to improve your classroom practice and deliver excellent teaching through access to research? Do you have a passion for teaching and are looking to connect with other like-minded colleagues through professional discussions? The Chartered College has partnered with TeacherTapp to support teachers to deliver excellent teaching through access to research, and we invite you to be part of this community. On this podcast, you will hear from fellow teachers, research experts, and you have the opportunity to be part of this professional discussion. You can find out more about the Chartered College of Teaching and TeacherTapp in the show notes. And if you find this episode helpful, why not share it with a teacher friend, take a screenshot and post it on your social media, or even better, leave us a 5-star written review.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Evidence Informed Teaching, the podcast by the Chartered College of Teaching and TeacherTapp. My name is Lisa Maria Müller and I'm Head of Research at the Chartered College of Teaching. In a past episode, I've told you a little bit about the research department at the Chartered College, what brought me here, and what our plans are for the future. So I'm delighted to be joined today by my colleague, Dr. Vic Cook, Education and Research Project Specialist, to talk a bit more about our research team, how we think it fits into the wider education ecosystem, and the research project we've recently completed. But let's start with you, Vic. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your teaching and research experience, and what brought you to the Chartered College?
Thank you, Lisa Maria. So I am originally a geography teacher. I taught 11 to 18 at a variety of different independent and state schools in England. And I completed my PhD in children's experiences of embodied fieldwork. So that kind of learning outside the classroom aspect has always been of interest to me as a geographer. And in between having children, I've been sort of back and forth into the classroom teaching. And then about 6 years ago, I stepped out of the classroom and got a role at the Faculty of Education at the University of Cambridge as a postdoctoral research associate, where I began working on one project that was a dialogue-focused project looking at technology-mediated dialogue and the role of a microblogging system called TalkWall and how that impacts on the sharing of ideas and collaborative co-construction of ideas in the classroom. And that led to another project that was an international research project funded by Horizon 2020 that was looking at the concept of cultural literacy as a dialogic social practice and thinking about dialogue as a much more open, expansive, exploratory type of dialogue that facilitates intercultural communication and understanding. And at the end of those two projects, I worked briefly for Voice 21, looking again, focusing with the dialogue focus and thinking about oracy, professional development in the classroom. And then I came to the college, which was very much for me the marrying of the research and the teaching. So being able to work in the research department is really what motivates my understanding of what educational research should be for. It's about impacting on practice, but intersecting crucially with professional expertise and contextual understanding.
Absolutely. That really makes me think of the Venn diagram that our colleague Kat Scott has introduced at some point, and that's, for example, also cited in an impact issue 10, I believe, in an article there, and which very much talks about the fact that evidence-informed teaching needs to be a combination of academic research on the one hand and context-specific application and implementation on the other, and also teacher expertise. So really combining those three. And that element of teacher expertise, I feel, is something that we at the research department try to grow and showcase. And it feels to me that there aren't many other organizations out there that look specifically at teacher expertise. It's something that we understand is hugely important, because of course it's down to the individual teacher to implement academic findings, research findings in their context, and down to individual teachers to trial new approaches, to conduct their own action research projects, for example. But we very often consider it at the individual level, whereas I think that at the college, and something the two of us obviously have talked about a lot, is that with our work at the college, we want to share the collective teacher expertise, so really showcasing what teachers know, and the thinking that goes into implementing research findings in their context, the questions they're asking themselves as well. And obviously you mentioned your research around dialogue, and that comes in here as well, doesn't it? This idea of a dialogue between academics on the one hand, teachers on the other, and how we can improve that dialogue and make sure that it's two-way communication rather than just one way, from academics to teachers.
Totally agree. Actually, that concept of professional learning dialogue is something that really interests me. And I think, you know, moving forwards on the horizon, perhaps something that we could do more of at the college in terms of thinking about how to help facilitate that and develop that sort of relationship that, as you said, is two-way rather than being top-down.
And that's very much what we try to do also in our most recent research project, isn't it? In a cognitive science research priority setting activity, where we wanted to capture teachers' expertise and the questions they ask themselves when they implement research findings in the classroom. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So research priority setting is frequently used in healthcare. And although different methods may be used for generating research priorities, fundamentally, research priority setting aims to establish consensus among knowledge users and researchers in order to shape the research agenda. So we established a research priority setting partnership to give teachers a voice in determining research priorities, relating specifically to the use and perceived effectiveness of cognitive science research across specific subjects, phases, students, and different learning contexts. So to date, the use of priority setting partnerships in educational research has been minimal. So it really was quite a novel approach. Lisa Marie, would you like to explain the process that we followed?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did is we thought to ourselves, well, what's the piece of research that is now quite popular in education that teachers are engaging with a lot? So, for example, we know that one of the most read articles from our impact articles is all about cognitive load theory. Just month after month after month, it's the most read article. So we thought clearly there is that interest in applying findings from the cognitive sciences in the classroom. But at the same time, we know from Perry and colleagues and a report that was published by the EEF that whilst we know a lot about theoretical cognitive sciences, we know relatively little about its application in the classroom. And that's, of course, due to the fact that classrooms are highly complex and, experimental designs, as we know, require quite controlled study groups and control groups. And so we wanted to find out more from teachers about as you said, about the questions they ask themselves when they apply findings from the cognitive sciences in their settings. So, for example, should I be using retrieval practice at the start of every lesson? What problems can I mix during interleaving? Does cognitive load theory apply to my pupils in the early years or to students with special educational needs? What do I need to consider there? So what we did is we set up a steering committee, as is common with these research priority setting activities, made up of members of our research ethics panel at the Chartered College, and they're a mix of academics and teachers in order to ensure that our methodology was both rigorous, but also that the questions we were asking were relevant to classroom practitioners. And we set up a survey where we used the categories used by Perry and colleagues of different cognitive science strategies. We provided brief definitions in order to make sure that everyone was on the same page. And then we asked teachers about their use of these different strategies. So are they using it? Are they using any of those at the moment? If they are, how effective they perceive them to be. And also if they've got any questions whilst implementing any of these strategies in their classrooms. And we gave them the opportunity to provide us with 3 questions, up to 3 questions. And then so the survey was open for about a month, and we collected over 400 questions, which was really good. Really happy with that result, and thanks to everyone who contributed to this piece of work. And then we developed a coding framework that looked at, after having read through the questions, we developed a coding framework which helped us to categorize the questions into different categories relating to implementation overall. But interestingly, we also had questions that related more to students and their motivation, for example, how cognitive science strategies interact with student motivation, but also relating to teacher development and teacher attitude. So, for example, how one can change negative attitudes about cognitive sciences potentially, how one can ensure that colleagues consider these different cognitive science strategies to be relevant to their context. And lots of questions about implementing cognitive science across different phases. So that's quite interesting that we had lots of questions about relevance of findings in the early years, primary, so ages that we know at which we know that less research was conducted, but also questions about interactions of different strategies. So how you combine them when you plan your curriculum, when you develop your schemes of work, what the right gaps are between different strategies. So lots and lots of questions. I'm not going to talk too much in detail about them because, as you can expect, we haven't published them yet, but we will publish them soon, the 15 research priorities that resulted from this activity. And the aim of this of these questions is to really guide researchers in their research, because of course academic researchers also want to make a difference in the classroom, and they can use these questions now to guide their research towards questions that are likely to have an impact in the classroom, because we know that these questions are being asked by teachers and are representing some issues in the classrooms. So we will be sharing that soon. So do keep an eye out for an announcement in the next newsletter or in an upcoming newsletter where we will share the 15 research priorities and tell you a little bit more about the research priority setting activity.
I think that sounds like, you know, a really important piece of work in terms of really valuing teacher voice and ensuring that the future research agenda is answering the questions that teachers have.
Absolutely, and it was great working with you on this, Vic, and I look forward to many more shared research projects on all sorts of topics. I think this was just a starting point. I'm sure we will be doing other research priority setting activities. There are so many topics we could explore, and as you say, it's so important to highlight the teacher voice and teacher expertise in this setting. And your contributions to all of this research is just so valuable. So thank you so much. You will be hearing from us on a semi-regular basis when we update you on all the various projects that are going on at the college. And next time you read about a call for participation, you know who it's coming from. It's from the research team, Vic and Lisa Maria, who are looking forward to hearing from you. If you've got any thoughts or suggestions and project ideas, do just get in touch.
If you have enjoyed today's episode and would like to access more research evidence for your classroom, you can join the Chartered College of Teaching for as little as $1.96 per month at www.chartered.college. And remember to download TeacherTapp free from your app or Play Store to share your views, opinions, and experiences from the classroom. Every voice makes the picture clearer.